Hello and welcome back to the Fit40 Podcast, where we simplify exercise and nutrition for busy people over 40 so they can improve their health and feel amazing. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach for people over 40 since 2015. And today we have an awesome topic. We're going to be covering the 3 things that your workouts must have if you're over 40. Now, before we dive in, as always, if you are returning and you haven't already, or if you're a new listener, go ahead and hit that subscribe or follow button wherever you're watching or listening so that way you don't miss another episode going forward. Just take 2 seconds, pause, go ahead. Okay, now let's get into it. The top 3 things that your workouts must have if you're over 40. Okay. What most people do when they attack their workouts, when they're just getting back into it for the first time in maybe months, or whenever they finally get back to it, they either just do some cardio, they just do strength training, like they go back to their old workouts that they used to do in high school or in college, and they do those lifts that they remember, and maybe they'll do like a body part split, like, oh, I'm going to hit chest today. Oh, I'm going to hit legs today and do that, which it's not bad. It's just not ideal, especially for this time in life, because especially body part splits where it's like, hey, if you miss a day in the gym, you miss an entire part of your body. It just doesn't work. So that's why I always end up favoring things like full body workouts or upper, lower, or front of your body one day, back of your body the next day, stuff like that. Because along with all of that, like we're missing body parts, obviously, but you're also like possibly missing an entire half of the equation if you're just doing cardio or you're just doing strength training. Because if you're just doing strength training, there you might end up like one of these people who are super freaking strong, but super weak when it comes to cardiorespiratory health. Like you can lift the house, but God forbid you go up the stairs, you're huffing and puffing and like sweating like crazy. Or on the flip side, the people that are super conditioned, they can run for miles and miles and miles and miles, but they're weak and frail. Like, yes, they can withstand all the running and everything, but their body just keeps breaking down on them. Their knees, their ankles, their hips are just fried at this point, or they can't really do anything outside of running. Like when it requires strength, they just don't have the ability to be helpful in that moment. Okay. And it's also potentially made worse by nutrition. So if you're too low on the calories, you become more weak and frail. And if you're too high on the calories, then you get excess body fat. And that's not good either. You want to find this middle ground where you're kind of like the best of everything. And that's why when it comes to the programming side of things, every single program that you do, if your goal is to have the best health possible, is to include strength training, conditioning, and mobility. So that way we're hitting the big 3 and making sure that we're checking off every box and we're not leaving anything off of that. Okay. Now, under these 3 umbrellas, there's a lot of stuff that you can do. Like I already alluded to strength training, how you can break it up into different style splits. But at the end of the day, when it comes to strength training being that first one, okay, you want to do pushing movements, pulling movements, squatting, hinging, and core/carry movements. That's going to hit every single muscle in your body, and you got to break it up in a way that makes sense for you so you're not missing these things. All right. And you can do this in 20 to 30 minutes. Like I'm going to be putting up a workout on YouTube that's actually up right now. I'm going to put the link down below in the description or the show notes so you can just click and see it. So if you want to see what this looks like real time, you could do the workout with me, because this is what we do in my gym. Like I give it to the clients. I use this template myself, and you adjust it based on your skill level and your goals. So you do like push and pull for 10, 15 minutes. Then you do squat, hinge for 10, 15 minutes. And then you incorporate core and carry in when it comes to the finisher side of things, but I'm not going to give too much away too soon. So let's talk about what these movements are. Okay. First off, push. That's like push ups. We're doing any type of pressing movement, like a dumbbell press, a machine press, incline press, shoulder press. Those things are all pushing movements. Then when it comes to pulling exercises, these are things like rows, like dumbbell rows or cable rows, things like lat pull downs, bicep curls I would throw in there. Same as I would for push, I would consider triceps and shoulder raises a push. But for pulling, it would be things like the pull downs, the rows, the bicep curls, anything where you're using those pulling muscles, like if you're pulling something into you. Next is squat. So these are things that are knee or hip dominant that focus on your quads. Okay. This could be things like squats. It could also be things like step ups, lunges. It could also be leg extensions, things like that, where you're hitting the front of your thighs. And then there's hinge movements. So this could be things like RDLs, and deadlifts are the common example. Like that's the most hingy you could get, or like a good morning. But I would also throw hamstring work in there too, because a lot of people, myself included, just don't do well with traditional hinge style movements. So you could do direct hamstring work. You could also put bridges in this category. So dumbbell bridges or hip thrusts, and that will hit those muscles as well. Pretty much anything that hits the hamstring and the glutes will hit those muscles that a hinge is meant to hit. And then last but not least is core and carry. Now, you are going to work the core if you are doing a lot of these things properly. Like if you are squatting and hinging properly, if you are engaging your core when you are doing like chin-ups or push-ups, like you are going to be working your core a lot. Or if you do single leg or single arm work, that will incorporate a lot of core. So if you're already hitting that, which I do a lot of, like that's why I do a lot of single leg, single arm work, so we check that box. But if you don't do that and you're doing a lot of machine work and you're doing a lot of things that are on a bench where it's like you don't necessarily have to brace your core super hard to stabilize yourself, then I would throw in core work and carries and things like that. And I personally like throwing carries into metabolic conditioning, like the conditioning cardio stuff that we're about to talk about. So you could throw it in there as well. So like I said, you could break that up. I like doing push and pull, like back and forth in a superset for 10 to 15 minutes, then squat and hinge back and forth for 10 to 15 minutes. And that gets you that 20 to 30 minutes of strength. So if you're pinched for time, you can just do that and you'll be set, assuming you got to warm up in before that. But that'll check off all the boxes when it comes to strength. And then you can do cardio on a separate day. Or if you want to throw in cardio afterwards, which I love to do because it just makes it so that you don't have to be in the gym 6-7 days a week. It could be like, okay, we're going to do this 2 or 3 times a week, which is awesome, time friendly, and more realistic for most people. So when we do this cardio, we want to hit different zones. We want your heart and your lungs to be able to handle different intensity levels. And heart rate zones are an easy way to keep track of this because you can literally use your Apple Watch or Google Watch or whatever, or if you have a strap, like a Polar strap or a Morpheus, which I really like, or any of those things, Garmin or a ring, something that can take your BPM, like your heart rate, your anything in that like 60 to 100, and I mean, it goes up pretty high depending on how capable you are of raising your heart rate, but anything in that like say 50 to 60 range on the low end, all the way up to like 170s ish, depending on how young you are. All right. So we want to experience these different zones so that we get the benefits that come with them. You don't want to just lock in on one. You want to get a sprinkle of everything. So depending on whatever you're doing outside of the gym, you're able to handle it, whether you're going for a hike or whether you have to sprint to catch your kid or your grandkid because they got away from you. You got to be able to go get them real quick. Or let's say like you decided to do a 5K and you got guilted into it and you're like, well, I don't want to look bad. I don't want to embarrass myself. You could still do that because it'll be like nothing if you are able to train in that zone. So let's start at the top. Okay, there's zone 4 to 5-ish, and that's going to be anywhere between like 130 to 170 beats per minute. And these are fast, hard, and quick. Like it's not meant to be maintained for a really long period of time. So doing sprint work, interval work, where it's like really only like that 5 to 20 second range of really hard effort followed by a lot of rest. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm doing HIIT today, and they're doing it for an hour. No, you're not doing HIIT if you're doing it for an hour. Okay. This is things like medicine ball slams, sprints. You could do a heavy sled or even a light sled, but doing a sprint with it, or like some heavy kettlebell swings where it's like after like 5 to 20 seconds, you're totally gassed. And then you need like whatever's left of the minute if you're doing a EMOM, or even longer, like if you want to check your heart rate and see, okay, I'm going to start the next round when my heart rate goes down to a certain point. Say you want to get to like that borderline between zone 2, maybe zone 3, and then start another round, then you could do it that way. And that's a really cool way to see, oh, is my heart rate variability getting better? Like your ability to bring your heart rate down after exerting yourself is a very good indicator of good health. So if you're able to do, say, more rounds because you're able to start another one faster because your heart rate is going back down into that zone quicker, then you could do it like that. That's a really kind of shorthanded way of figuring out, hey, I can do more, which is always awesome. Hopefully I didn't lose anybody on that, but that's zone 4 to 5. Then there's zone 3. This is like what we call like that conditioning zone, or it's just like that step above zone 2 where it's fatiguing and you can't do as much of it as zone 2, but it's not quite as kick your ass as zone 4 to 5. So you can handle a little bit more of this. Okay. And with that, I personally like doing things like fast feet intervals, like ladder patterns with like the quick feet. Because you can do this for like 30 to 60 seconds. And then there's also like a medium weight sled, just enough where it's hard, but it's not like crushing you. And we're not really trying to sprint super fast with it. And another one is like an incline treadmill. So it's not really easy to maintain the pace. It's a little bit hard and we kind of hit that sweet spot. So you could do that as well. Again, you could do this for intervals, or if you just want to hold that steady rhythm at that certain spot for a certain amount of time, that could also work well too. And then after that is zone 2. This is the bread and butter of like what you want most of your cardio to be. The people who are amazing endurance athletes, who are amazing athletes in general, like when it comes to fighting, like boxing, MMA, things like this, they load up on zone 2 because you can do a ton of it and it improves your cardiac health without generating a ton of fatigue. So you don't have a lot of stress to recover from. This helps you bounce back faster. And this is that, or sorry, let me back up. Zone 3, by the way, is like 115 to 145 beats per minute for anybody like 40 to 60. And then zone 2 is like 95 to 125 beats per minute for people like 40 to 60-year-old range. But this will change. Like you want to understand where your zone is that you want to be in based on your age. Like the estimate for most people, 220 minus your age as your max heart rate, and then doing percentages of that is usually on point, like for the most part. But if you're an endurance athlete, it's going to be different. So it does help to have software like Morpheus available. But back to zone 2, 95 to 125 beats per minute. And you could do this like steady state. You could just go for a very, very brisk walk or treadmill, rower, skier, any of those traditional cardio machines, ellipticals, things like that, and just kind of keep yourself right there and go for however long you have. That's one way to do it. Another fun way is ADD cardio, which is what I call it, where you pick a bunch of low-level movement patterns and do that for, say, a minute of each. So like what I'll do in Fit40 when we're in session is I'll be like, okay, so we're going to do, say, step-ups for a minute, not going for as fast as possible. I just want you to stay in motion. Then when you're done with that, we're going to do like side shuffles, side to side for a minute. Then when you're done with that, we're going to do world's greatest stretch, where you're just going back and forth, doing it under control. Again, nothing crazy for a minute. And then we'll do something like, I don't know, like really slow medicine ball slams or a skipping pattern, like something athletic where your brain can make the connections, but you're not really like pushing yourself super hard while you're doing it. So it's a little mentally stimulating, but heart rate wise, it's keeping you in that sweet spot. So that's really cool too. Yeah, so we could do stuff like that. Another thing I've incorporated too is low level core movements, like the deep core works, things like chops, or like I said, carries before, but light carries. So you're getting more of your core endurance work during that rather than bracing and bearing down super hard like you would for like a deadlift or something like that. But instead, it's like, okay, you get good at carrying things for a long time. So if you have a kid or a grandkid that you have to hold for a long time, or I've got a puppy right underneath me that's getting heavier by the day. Like when I have to hold him for extended periods of time, like when I'm trying to make sure he doesn't pee on the carpet and I got to carry him for however long that is to get to the door so he doesn't do that. So real life situations like that are really helpful for incorporating carries in here. And you only have to do like 10 to 20 minutes of this stuff. Cause again, you can do tons of zone 2, but if you're pinched for time, you can stick to 10 to 20 minutes. And if you get 2 to 4 workouts a week, you'll be in a very, very good spot. Now, Will we be hitting all of the standard like suggestions and recommendations to a T? No. But that's not what we're going after. We're trying to be better. We're trying to get ourselves to better health. And you don't have to hit a certain standard. You just have to do better than you were before, because anything beats sedentary. And if you're going to do what I just talked about and check all these boxes, this is a really good way to do that. Now, before I conclude, we still have mobility, because this is a big one, especially over 40. This is a case for if you don't use it, you lose it. When it comes to mobility, that is so true, because if you stop moving in certain ways, then you go to do that and bang, we like strain a muscle, or we feel something give, or we do that thing. I'm sure there's an instance or two in your head where you did something you haven't done in a long time and ow, now this hurts. So you want to be feeling comfortable in these different ranges of motion, these different rotation angles of your shoulder and your hip and things. So you're like, okay, I've done this before. My body can handle this, and it's not a surprise for my brain. So the spots that come to mind are the shoulders and hips. Like, those are the two I attack. I'm sure if you've already seen the warm-up videos on YouTube, if you haven't, go check those out. That's the two main spots that we hit, are shoulders and hips. And we want to get flexion, extension, internal and external rotation, because that'll pretty much hit every angle we can think of. Then there's the neck. This is a very underlooked or underappreciated area, which is like that spot that a lot of people do hold a lot of tension. It can cause tension headaches. It can cause just general neck pain in general. General neck pain in general. All right. Anywho, with this, you want to do the standard stuff that you can think of with neck stretches, which are bends, whether it's side to side or front to back, and just holding that for a little bit. Or you could do circles and get a little bit of motion in there, whether you go clockwise or counterclockwise. Wrists, same thing. We want to like flex and extend, but also get a little rotation in there. I'm sure if you do it right now while you're driving, or like while you're at work and you do a little rotation with your wrist, probably going to feel a little snap, crackle, pop, hopefully no pain, but like, yeah, they're a little bit tight. So get some motion in there. And also calves, very underappreciated area for relieving low back pain, because sometimes just the whole posterior chain from like your top of your back all the way down to your calves is just tight. So sometimes when you loosen up a kink in the chain, like your calves being super tight because you're constantly sitting down, or maybe you always have an elevated heel with your shoe wear, things like that can get it really, really tight over time. So then you stretch it out and you're like, wow, I feel this blood rush go all the way up the back of my legs. Sometimes that can happen. Then when we incorporate all that stuff, we want to do this in a way that makes sense. Okay. Obviously, we want to do this a lot. Like doing a daily daily movement hygiene would be ideal. I've got a few clients that do this. I'll plug in their program and be like, do these 4 things for like 5-10 minutes to start or finish the day, or just do it at some point. And that usually does really well. So if you want to go do those warm-ups minus like the fast feet portion and just do those motions, you could do those 3 moves and feel really, really good. But I would also suggest doing them as a warm up for your actual workout, so you can get your heart rate up and make it a little bit more dynamic. And when your heart rate is up, your tissue temperature is elevated and you're warmer, you get more out of the mobility stuff. You could also use it as fillers. Like I like using it, and you'll see this when I do, if you check out the workout that I'm going to post on YouTube that is down below. Like you could use it as a filler in between sets. So you can pick something that's tight that might be affecting the superset or the movement that you're doing, and stretch it out in between your sets. So you, number one, just have something to do instead of scrolling on Instagram, or instead of twiddling your thumbs watching the clock. So it gives you something mentally to focus on, but also it can improve your movement quality. So like, let's say you're doing bench press and you stretch out your chest in between sets, and all of a sudden, wow, my shoulders feel better this next set, so I can produce more force. I feel stronger. Like that stuff can help a lot. As long as these are stretches that are not really generating a lot of fatigue and making you tired for the next set, should be good to go. And then also, obviously, as a cool down, you could do these movements too. So that way, when you're stretching, like you're doing static stretching, you could bring your heart rate down and help you kind of bring everything back to a relaxed state. It'll improve movement outside of the gym when you leave, because a lot of people do get really tight after their workouts, and then it makes them feel tight throughout the day. And then they're just not really experiencing how good it feels to unlock those joints and be in that place where for the rest of the day, you're not as stiff or sore. So it would be worth giving that a try just to see what that feels like and how you respond, like how your body responds with that. And then also better recovery, because when you are nice and loose and you get good blood flow, that allows you to recover better than if you're super stiff and you're not getting that same quality of blood flow. Okay. And then along with all of this, just an honorable mention for people over 40, exercise variation helps a lot. Okay, doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over again for months and months and years on end is a good way to beat up your joints, because they're not experiencing different angles. They're never getting a break from those other specific angles. So it spares the joints. Okay. But that being said, you don't want to be so you don't want to have so much variety that you never get good at what you're doing and you don't actually get the results that you want. So there is a sweet spot where it's like not too much, not too little. So for strength movements, like you want to do the same program for at least 4 weeks. So you could do a day A that's different from day B, that's different from day C, but those day A, B, and C's stay the same. Like they might incorporate different exercises, but they stay the same week after week for at least 4 weeks, ideally more like 8 to 12. And then you change it up and do a harder variation or a different variation in a way that your body appreciates and it feels good and it's able to do. All right. And also, don't change the entire template. Like I just said, like don't change every aspect of it. But what you could do is kind of flip flop back and forth. The way I like to do it in Fit40 is we do strength first, or sorry, we do the dynamic warm up, then strength, then cardio, then mobility. But if you want to flip flop cardio and strength, it can be very beneficial, especially if you're somebody who's really, really tight and you feel a lot of achy joints during your exercise. It could really help to do the cardio first, just again, to increase that tissue temperature, increase blood flow and things like that, which can help loosen you up a little bit more. So that's another way that you can vary it. But again, I wouldn't change that week to week. That would be more like a month to month or every other month or every quarter type deal. So that's how I would do it. And that is honestly like the big 3 things that you need in your program if you're over 40. Now, this was very programming heavy in the weeds, and I know that I might have lost a few people in there. And honestly, that's because this stuff can get a little bit crazy. And this is really just scratching the surface of how deep we can go. But this should allow you to create a program that makes sense, that leaves you feeling really, really good. But that being said, I know a lot of people will listen to this and be like, I don't even know where to start. And that's why I'm here. That's why I coach. And that's why if you need somebody to go to this level for you and make sure you have a program that matches your body, your goals, your preferences, and that you like showing up for because you feel better week after week, then join us. Okay. Check out Fit40. I do in person and over Zoom live on the hour from Monday through Saturday, 6 to noon as of right now. So if you want to join us then, go ahead, we can talk about it. Or if you need a plan where I could do this for you and you do it on your own and I hold you accountable, I do that as well. So if you want to talk about it, see if it's right for you, just click that link down below and we'll do a free intro call and you and me will chat it up, see if it's right for you, and we'll get you moving in the right direction. Because let's be honest, if you haven't done anything and you are considering doing exercise and you want to do it in a pain-free way, this is probably your best bet. Okay. I will get you set up in a great way and you'll be thankful that you did this months, years from now when you're feeling like $1 million compared to friends and family. All right. So that's it for today. Thank you so much for listening in. Hope you learned a thing or two. Go check out that workout on YouTube, but I will see you next time. Go kick some ass. Bye-bye.